I've had my Steam Deck OLED since launch, which is over 6 months ago now. So, has it transformed how I play? And if you're sitting on the fence, should you pull the trigger and dive into the handheld PC market? This is the Steam Deck OLED after the buzz. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and the main reason I bought one of these in the first place is that my partner stole my original Steam Deck to play Dave the Diver and Power World. For those of you who aren't up to speed, the Deck OLED is Valve's handheld PC that runs SteamOS built atop of Linux, with handheld controls, a 7.4-inch 800p 90Hz OLED touchscreen, and houses a Ryzen APU with 16GB of DDR5 shared memory and up to 1TB of SSD space. I have the maxed out option for those wondering. In general, the OLED's Ryzen APU is only mildly faster than the original, but is more efficient from both a heat and power consumption standpoint. And the screen is a tad larger, but now with the 90Hz refresh rate over the 60 of the original. Combine these things and it's genuinely worth going for the newer model if you can. You even get a revised case with a clever little Velcro piece that always falls back into place so that if you forget to zip it up with the device in it, it should remain safe and not let the deck fall out. Let me give you a quick rundown on me. I'm a pretty big gamer, and I have been for as long as I can remember. I played the absolute snot out of my PS1 and PS2, specifically with titles like Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, the best one by a long way, all of the Gran Turismo games, all the way to current day, where I have more hours in Counter-Strike Go and Apex Legends than I really care to admit, and right now I'm training for my next iRacing endurance race in my simulator. But one big change has occurred over that time. I've gone from playing mostly casual and single player games to competitive esports multiplayer games. It's very rare that I actually sit down at my PC or at my couch with my consoles and play story games, platformers, RPGs. That is something that has changed with my ownership of the Steam Deck OLED though. See, there are heaps of competitive games that just straight up won't run on the Steam Deck, mostly due to an incompatibility with SteamOS and Proton, which is Steam's compatibility layer. My wonderful colleague Adam Conway wrote an article on just this topic on XDA, explaining that Destiny 2, Tarkov, Valorant, Rust and Fortnite all refuse to work on the deck. Competitive games that do run though, like Apex Legends and CS2, work and all that, but also prove to me that those kinds of games aren't what the Steam Deck is really for. The controls aren't quite there for competitive games, the screen isn't 144 or 240Hz, and while the OLED is more than powerful for plenty of games, it just doesn't feel like it was made for esports titles. However, for games like those I mentioned I used to play in my childhood, platformers, RPGs, single player stuff, indie titles even, this machine is fantastic. Suddenly I find myself playing games that I just wouldn't touch on my PC, not because I didn't like those games, but because I always wanted to scratch the competitive itch when I'm sat at my monitor. If you've ever tried to play GTA 4 on the PC, the best of them all, don't at me, then you'll know that even with a beefy setup, it still runs really poorly and has been infamous for its rubbish PC optimization. However, running the game on my Steam Deck and the OLED model have been the best experiences I've had of that game ever, and I'm kind of shocked because this is a game that's running through Proton. It's not made to natively work on this machine. I completed that game on here for the first time in years, despite my best efforts to try and get back into it on the PC side, because it is my favourite of the series. I've also played a fair amount of Gran Turismo 4 on here through an emulator, and while there are a few little issues with the software and some strange artifacting here and there, by and large I've had a really good time with that title, and it's something I haven't touched since I was about 8 years old. And experiencing it on an OLED display for the first time was quite something too, as the only OLED displays I've ever owned up until now have been the ones on my phones. Heaps of genres I haven't touched either for ages or at all I've experienced and enjoyed on the Deck OLED. Fighting games like Tekken 7, I know it's not the latest one, but it was cheap at the time. Sandbox games like Terraria that my partner has been pestering me to play with her for years. RPGs like Dark Souls that I still don't fully understand, but I'm having fun with. Platformers like Vicarious Visions, Crash and Sane Trilogy, and indie titles like Session, which reminds me of the Skate series, a franchise that's looking to release its 4th installment soon, and I really cannot wait for that. Not only did I enjoy these games I basically wouldn't play on other platforms, but I got to enjoy them with a bright HDR OLED display, pretty ergonomic controls all things considered, and from the comfort of well, anywhere. Be that the sofa, in bed, at my desk, or in the car on long journeys in the passenger seat. I actually went out and bought the first party $89 docking station, but quite frankly I've used that maybe twice since I bought it last year. For me, the deck is a handheld machine, though I do know some people who have integrated the deck into their desk setup. That's just not how I like it best. Now, due to the Deck OLED not being my primary device, I haven't decimated the battery, meaning I can still play for 3 to 4 hours before the thing needs to be plugged in, although this is very much game dependent. I basically never have the display cranked up to 100% because on sunny days I'm either out enjoying the sun or I'm working, so handheld gaming doesn't really come into it. I've played a fair amount with this thing plugged in, and that seems to work just fine from an ergonomic perspective with the ports being on the top. As though I was always kind of concerned about the seemingly loose USB-C port, it hasn't become any worse or caused any kind of issues over my time with it. It's entirely possible to use one of these things as your primary gaming device, and at $650 for the 1TB model, which is the one I'd recommend because games are huge, I can certainly see those who like particular games or particular genres falling in love with this device. I know many who have switched to this from old and increasingly weak PCs because their busy lives make it pretty much impossible to set aside time to sit down and play. The beauty of the Steam Deck, and the OLED in particular, is it's very much a device that you can just pick up and put down super easily. The interface in SteamOS has become one of my favourite parts of it. I think one of the reasons this device is as good as it is because it's not running Windows. And by that I mean there's no bloat, there's no annoying notifications on startup, no background apps draining the battery and pulling CPU and GPU resources. It's just a Linux OS with some clever compatibility tweaks to let you play more games on the platform than you really normally would be able to. And speaking of, there's definitely a little bit of frustration in finding a game you really want to play, or even one that you think would suit the Steam Deck perfectly, and then finding out that it requires Windows to run. Not every game works on SteamOS, but I do think with the Deck's popularity, Linux will become better at this stuff. I know you can technically load Windows onto the SSD in here, and that's fine for those who want to do that, but from what I've watched and read about it, you kind of take away the console-like seamless experience by removing that SteamOS thing, and for me, it would kind of ruin the best part of the Deck. The Steam Deck is one of the best things to happen to PC gaming in a long time. And with the overall very impressive review scores from even sites like our own XDA, it's clear the sentiment is along the similar lines to my own thoughts. It's just such a versatile little machine that doesn't cost an obscene amount of money and yet can deliver some of the best gaming experiences on the market right now. Personally, the Steam Deck OLED hasn't transformed the way I game, but it has generously supplemented my gaming experience. Am I going to stop playing Apex at my desk or iRacing in the rig? No, but for those times where I want to sink my teeth into a different kind of game, the Deck OLED has opened a new door for me, and in my opinion is one of the best gaming devices you can buy right now. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another one like this. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.